Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is March 27th, and today is our last regularly scheduled romance author who is part of our opening love fest for season 3. But good news for you, we were able to reschedule an author who was not able to make it into the regularly scheduled shows, and we will be bringing you her interview next week. But today we get to talk to J.R. Byers about her Blackwood series, which is a historical fiction paranormal romance series that readers love. She has got some fantastic reviews, and I think you're going to love what she has to say about it. So I'm not going to go into a lot more right now. Be sure to stay all the way to the end, and I will have some great news coming up for you about future events with Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart and Book Banter Magazine. But for now, let's go right to our interview. Please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, J.R. Byers. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners who you are and what you do?
My name is J.R. Byers. I am an indie author. I have 2 books out on Amazon, the Blackwood series, and then I have a second series, the Stonebrook series, that is coming out in February.
So now, what are the titles of the books that you have that are currently available in your Blackwood series?
The first one is Finding Emmeline, a Blackwood series novel, and the second one is Cain's Reckoning, and the third one, that one doesn't have a title yet.
But that's a work in progress.
Yes, that is my work in progress.
But now, you did not start out with the intention of being an author. You had a different path in life.
I did. I was actually going to be a photographer, which I did for many years, many years. And then I got married and I had my second child. And, that keeps you very, very busy. So I just kind of wrote when I had the chance and just really didn't put any thought into it. It was just kind of my hobby, my downtime. And then when my youngest child started school, what are you going to do with your day?
Yeah.
So this is so silly. I went to the movies because I had nothing to do that day until she got out of school. And that was when 50 Shades first came out. And I was curious like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to be condescending in any way, but I walked out of that theater and I was sitting in my car. And my first thought was, well, I can write better than that. Mm-hmm. I was just sitting there and I was thinking, nothing against the movie. I didn't really have anything against it. But I went home and I sat down at my computer and I just started writing. And it was just complete garbage. I'm not going to be honest about that. It was horrible. My husband read it and he was just like, oh no, honey, no. No. So I scrapped that. And 2 days later, I literally woke up from a dream with an idea. And again, when my children went to school, I sat down on my computer and I just started coming up with the idea for my first book.
Well, what's so funny is I have heard from so many people that the first thing that they sit down to write when they finally got that urge to go for that idea of writing a book, they will never show anybody the first piece that they wrote because they disliked it so much. But the great thing is there are so many people who would have let that stop them from trying again, but you didn't.
Yeah. No, I keep it and I go back to it every once in a while just to show myself how far you've come in the last 10 years. 10 years of research and learning and classes and workshops and just, doing the work. I have found with a lot of my book groups and my author groups, you just want to sit down and write. Well, it's not that easy. You got to do the work. But I do keep that and I look at it every once in a while and I have a file on my computer and I think, oh, good Lord, I'm so proud of myself for not just saying I'm done.
Yeah. Now, somebody like you who does put the work in, you've taken classes, you work with writing groups, you work on the craft. What do you think of these latest things that have been coming out where they're talking about so many AI programs that are throwing up books online for sale, that there's no craft behind it.
No, and a lot of people have called me old school, and I'm completely okay with that. A lot of people ask me my age, like, how old are you? Like, did you start writing on the computer? No, I started writing by hand. I didn't have a computer when I first started writing,
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell by a lot of these books that they put in the work. They did the research. They struggled sitting in front of a blank piece of paper. So now it's just, to me, and this is just my opinion, it's just so easy for them, but it's not good quality work. It just looks like there's no thought behind it because everything is computer generated. It's AI.
Yeah. One of the things that always kind of bothers me is whenever you see people say they don't need an editor, that the sentence structure and the grammar mistakes and the punctuation mistakes are not a big deal because it's the story that matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I get that a lot. Yeah.
it's like the story does matter, but when there's lots of grammar mistakes and punctuation mistakes and it makes it difficult to read, it takes
Mhm.
away from the story.
Oh, absolutely. And I read so much. And it's just, and this is what I tell people when they come to me for my editing business, who's like, why should I use you as my editor? Because I do that as well. That's my day job.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them the same thing. I'm not selling you my services. I'm just saying you need to find an editor because, for one, you need that extra set of eyes. You
Yeah.
cannot edit your own work. I've found that out with my first book. There's so many mistakes in my first book. And that's the second revision because I did the editing myself. And even though I do that for a living, you have to have that second pair of eyes because you're too close to it. A book may really, really interest me, but if I can't get past all the errors and the punctuation and the spelling, I'm not going to finish the book. It can be the most well-written book you've ever read, but your eyes always catch something that's misspelled or
Mm-hmm.
a run-on sentence, like, wait, okay. So is this the next scene or what's going on here? So if you have to constantly go back and reread something, you're just on to the next book. There's just too many of them out there. Editing is so important, but obviously nobody catches everything.
Yeah, that
That's
you find traditionally published books that have a team of editors, still there'll be a mistake that slips through every once in a while. It's human error.
definitely.
It's going to happen.
It's very difficult to catch everything, but that's the first thing people are going to point out on your books when they give you reviews is there's a really good story, but I couldn't finish it because there were so many mistakes.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going to pick up your next book. That's just what I've encountered because I do it as well. I can look at some of my favorite authors and they just don't do the editing like they should.
Yeah. What is the easiest part of the process for you whenever you're coming up with a new book idea?
Actually, the easiest process for me, and I don't know why this is because it's never used to happen with me. Coming up with the ideas are very, very easy because I've been reading romance novels since I was 12 years old.
Oh,
Coming
wow.
up with oh yeah, it's very early. But coming up with the ideas are very, very easy because I have all these ideas in my head and I had to actually buy a tape recorder to sit beside my bed because a lot of times I have severe insomnia. So before I forget them, I just record them so I can put them into my computer the next day. But I have probably too many ideas in my head
Yeah.
because I have all these books that I want to do. And it's file after file after file. So that's been the easiest for me is coming up with the ideas and finding the characters that I want. And I always have very vivid images in my head of who these characters are. And for me, it's really easy because I don't feature female characters on my covers. My books are never usually about the female characters, they're always about the male characters. And that's very easy for me. I've been surprised how easy that is. I grew up reading romance novels, but I didn't read paranormal romance novels. And that's been very surprising to me that that's been my interest.
That's one of the things that I find really fascinating is how many people say, I didn't intend to write a book like this, but when I sat down, that's what came out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but my very first book was supposed to be a little more spicy. And I have people tell me that I write clean novels, which I'm very happy with that. I had no intention of writing like the 50 Shades stuff. I had no intention of doing that. But my first book, I thought, well, this is what sells. This is what's going to sell my books and everything. That's not anywhere near what my first book is. It's just didn't come out that way. And I'm very happy about it now. But it was a totally different kind of book. But now that I've written that one, I'm kind of hooked on doing the paranormal stuff and I enjoy it.
Well, I can so identify with that because I started out, my first book series is just historical fiction. I wanted to write a Western because my grandmother liked Westerns. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write this with her in mind. And it came out as very clean Christian fiction. And that was not my intention, but that's how it got categorized by people who were reading it.
Yeah.
That's how they saw it. I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. It's like, I don't have a problem with that. That's not what I meant, but sure.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had someone read my first manuscript. My son-in-law actually read my first manuscript and he's just like, and he was 20, 25 at the time. And he's just like, Jan, I don't see you writing this. I don't see this selling it. This is just not you. And I took that to heart and I just scrapped it and started writing him a line and I sent it back and he's like, this is you. This is you. I see you in this book. And I was like, well, no, that's not me in the book. I don't see that. That's not me. But I see what he's talking about. And I just think things are meant to happen as they're meant to happen.
Yeah.
Just may take you a couple shots to do it.
Now, one of the things that I did want to talk to you about was you have the two books in your Blackwood series. You have Finding Emmeline and Cain's Reckoning. The covers on these books are very different. The first one has almost an ethereal look to it, where the other one is very modern and kind of like your standard good-looking guy on a romance cover. So what brought about the difference in these covers?
The first cover, which I'm so happy I found, because I can't find her anymore. I think actually somebody told me she's actually passed away because I've been looking all over for her. I love that cover. But the first cover was because the first book is set more in the 1700s because the book is about someone being reincarnated and, she lives in 17th century Scotland and that's where they met and that's where they got married and had their relationship. And I'm not too familiar with reincarnation. I'm still doing a lot of research on that, but I just wanted I wanted the second book for people to know when they read it. This book is set in the 21st century because that's where she comes back. That's where he finds her again. And the second book is more about their relationship now. So I wanted it to be very, very different. I wanted it to look very different. I wanted him to know that this is not just part two of a series. It could be a standalone book if you wanted it to. But I wanted to make sure the first cover that it was very obvious this is set in the 17th century. It's 17th century Scotland. The look was very different. The vibe was very different. And that's how I tried to write it so people would understand when they look at the cover. It's very historical. As many historical references as I could possibly put on a cover without overdoing the cover. But then when they pick up the second book, they'll realize this is more about Cain than it is Emmeline. So I just thought, well, I wanted to keep the blues in the cover, but there's a little bit of a connection on the covers, but they'll understand. You get so many books, they're just writing the same thing. Yeah. In the second book. So I just kind of wanted it a little more choppy, just a little different.
One thing that has to make you feel good, even though you don't have a lot of reviews on these first two books, they're all 100%. You have 5 out of 5 on both of the books.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. Every time I start getting down and I'm looking at this screen thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? I got nothing in my head right now. Something just always happens. I don't know. My husband, he's just like, well, God's telling you something. I was like, oh, God's telling me I need good reviews. Okay. Okay. But that's my go-to. I always go and I reread my reviews. And I think this is why at first I thought, well, it's just because these people know me. They don't know me personally, but you have that fear as an author. Are they just giving you a good review because they know you? I want honest reviews. Yeah. That's the only way you learn is if you're having an honest review. And I think I only know 2 of the people personally that have given me reviews, but I'm just like, that's always my go-to, always is going back and reading those. And I mean, I understand not every review is going to be gold. I understand that, but it's been a little overwhelming But it's very nice. I get people all day long telling me, did you pay for these reviews? No, I don't pay for reviews.
Well,
No, I
that's
don't do
one
that.
thing we often have discussions about this, about how to deal with negative reviews, because
Oh,
sometimes you get some of the most ridiculous negative reviews.
yeah.
Just like one of the authors I was just talking to, she's a romance author. Her entire line of books is curvy women. She writes big, beautiful women heroines.
Oh,
That's her hook on her
yeah.
story series. And some guy complained that she had plus size women as the heroines. It's like, then why are you reading a plus size curvy heroine series? It's
That's what
like,
I was just thinking. Then why are you reading it?
I don't, and I mean, and it's plain. She has it in her logo. She has it in the description of the
Yes.
book. It's all over the place that's what she's writing about. And that's exactly what this person complained about. Like,
Oh my God.
it's amazing. And you just want to go, well, duh.
Duh. Hello.
So whenever people are talking about reviews, you always have to take them all, the good and the bad, with a grain of salt, because
Yes.
everybody who writes a review is coming at it from their perspective.
Right.
And
Right.
their perspective may have nothing to actually do with your work.
Yes. Yes. It's just a matter of opinion, and I know the bad reviews are coming. I'm not that naive.
There's just a part of being an author.
Yeah, I can't say you can't take it personally because it is very personal. These are your babies, but
Yeah.
you can't let it stay in your head. You just got to move on to the next book and just say, okay, lesson learned. And sometimes it makes you try harder.
Well,
So,
it's one of those things I think everybody needs to sit down and just stop for a moment and say, okay, do they have a valid point about what I'm doing? And
yeah,
if they have a valid point, then maybe make a few notes and carry that over and keep it in mind whenever you're writing the next one. Should you do anything about that or should you not?
yes, exactly.
Because just because they have a valid point doesn't mean you need to change anything. You just need to consider it.
Yeah,
And if they
yeah.
don't have a valid point, just let it go.
Let it go. Just that was very difficult for me when I first started. It was just like, oh well, maybe I need to change this new. And I did so many rewrites, and then I just went back to the first part of the book that I wrote, and I like the way it plays out. I like the flow. I don't need to add any more characters. I got that a lot. You need to add more characters. You need to have this character have her own story. Well, that's not her story. I might
Yeah,
write her story later, but I don't want a book so thick that nobody's going to pick it up. So I can only
yeah,
put so many characters in here, you know.
exactly.
But that's the next book. I always tell them, this is my suggestion to you. In all honesty, sit down and write a book.
Hmm.
If you have these ideas, sit down and write that book. I think everybody has some kind of writer in them.
And now, with it being so easy for anybody to indie publish their own book, everybody who has those stories in their head can sit down and write their own book.
Yeah, yeah. So we're so lucky now to be able to do that because I am looking in traditionally publishing, but it's very challenging. It's extremely challenging. So just starting out like I am, we're very lucky to have Amazon and Drafted Digital. It's so easy just to click that button. I was shocked how easy it was to get published on Amazon. I don't look at my rankings because I don't want to know. and that's what everybody says. How do I find your book? Well, here's the link. Growing up, we didn't have that. So we're very, very lucky to be able to do that now.
Absolutely. What has been the hardest part for you? I mean, most authors say the marketing.
The hardest part for me is I'm very easy with a conversation. Obviously, I can talk about anything, but the hardest part is it's very easy for me to sit down and write that conversation. The hardest part for me is putting that conversation together, putting the dialogue together. My biggest pet peeve when reading a book is if they're too stilted, if they're too,
Mhm.
I've read so many books that it's the he says, the she says, it's very stilted, it's very stiff. I try to write like you're having a normal conversation with somebody. If I'm reading a book and everything is very formal, like he said, I'm going to the store. Nobody talks like that. That's a huge pet peeve with me. So I try to write. I'm a very Southern person. I try to stay away from the going to, and I try to finish. I try to stay away from that. But I can sit there and write a conversation in 10 minutes, no big deal. But then you have to put it together.
Mhm.
And that's very difficult for me. That's the bulk of my time during the day. I think I'm fairly good at detail. Like if I'm reading something or if I'm watching something on TV, plot holes are my big thing. Storylines are my big thing. I can catch them so fast. And I have to do the same thing with my editor. If you catch that, you need to let me know because I am very Southern. So she's just like, I have no idea what that word means. I was like, oh, it's a Southern thing. Okay, well, we need to take that out. Okay. But I catch those things, but you're not going to catch them all.
Yeah.
But, or y'all, I'm really big with y'all.
Yeah.
I have to stop doing that. Oh my good Lord. But I catch that in my work. And that's one thing she said on that first book is nobody in 17th century Scotland uses the word y'all. It's a good thing I caught that. And I was like, oh my goodness. So she said, you need to slow down on the typing because you're not catching these things.
That's funny. Well, my biggest pet peeve, I mean, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. And actually, I just heard you use it correctly. And I'm like, oh, thank you. When you say people who, where most people say people that. And I'm like, no, things are that, people are who.
People are who, yeah.
Like, oh my God. And you see that in advertising and you hear it in dialogue on television and movies. And I'm like, oh, stop it.
Oh, and I'm the first one. I'll be sitting there watching something, and because I don't sleep, so I watch a lot of movies at night, and I tend to start writing them down. I was like, okay, you don't need to do this in your work. You don't need to do this in your work. And the next morning, I'll be sitting at the kitchen table, and my husband's like, "What is this? What are you writing at night?" I said, "Oh no, that's not for the book. That's just what not to put in the book." And he's just like, "This sentence makes no sense. It was not supposed to."
Yeah.
It's not supposed to. It's just, he's like, oh, you're doing the grammar thing again. Well, yeah. That's what I do.
But that's what makes you a good editor. Here, and this will probably give your editor self chest pains, but I'm going to share this. I have 3 computers that I work on. I have an iPad, I have a laptop, and I have my desktop. My iPad has a keyboard on it that is the American keyboard. My laptop has an Italian keyboard. My computer is a German keyboard. So you can imagine the weird typos that I have because I'm going from keyboard to keyboard and the letters are in different places. And my German keyboard has the extra German letters, like, U with umlauts and A with umlauts and things like that. And so my editor gets to deal with that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Plus the program that I write in is actually a British version. So it often tries to correct my spelling to British English instead of American English. And the one thing that I never seem to catch is installment, because in the British English, it's spelled with 1 L, with the American English spelled with 2. And it's always going through on the British English and people are telling me, you spelled this wrong. I'm like, no, it's actually spelled correctly. It's just the British English.
Yes, I get that all the time. Like, oh, you spelled that wrong. You didn't catch that. No, I did catch that. This is their spelling because I do a lot of different languages that I have to translate into. And they're just like, oh, no, that's not right. Well, no, it's an Italian author. That's how you spell it. So it's very frustrating. Well, because you're writing it and they're auto-correcting it. Yeah, it's extremely frustrating. Oh my goodness.
I swear, it's like, I'm always telling people, I'm really seriously not this bad of a typist.
Oh, yeah. I have 3 Scottish authors that I edit for, and I don't understand a lot of their language, but I have to translate it. And I'm constantly texting them, constantly emailing them. Is this actually the right word, or is my computer trying to autocorrect it? It's very time consuming, but it's worth it to get it right. You have to get it right. Yeah. So I get it. I completely get it.
So now let's talk specifically about Finding Emmeline. Tell us the story of this one.
Finding Emmeline is about an antique dealer in Colorado. And I came up with Colorado right after I visited. I have an older sister that lives there, and I fell in love with Colorado. I had no idea where I was going to have this book set at. I just knew I wanted it to be like a more of a Scottish theme. But then I visited Colorado and I fell in love with everything there. So it's set in Colorado. It's about an antique dealer who her assistant finds a painting at an auction, and she brings it back to the shop. And the woman in the book, her name is Emily Snow, and she's just obsessed with this painting. So she does her research on it, and she actually finds out who the painting belonged to from an inscription on the back of the painting. And she contacts him, and she's just so completely obsessed with this painting. She takes it to her house. She actually puts it in her bedroom, and she talks to it. She dreams about it. And she just keeps having these visions in her head about a past life that she may have had. And she finds out that she actually has a connection to the woman in the painting. So she contacts the original owner of the painting, and come to find out that she was actually married to this man in a former life. And that's where the second book kind of comes in, as she talks to Kane Blackwood, and she has these visions of things that she did in a past life, the things they did as a married couple in their past lives. And she finds out that she was adopted and that her biological mother was related to this. It kind of has a few twists and turns in it that I just kind of threw in there because I thought it was just kind of interesting. And then towards the end of the book, we find out what happened to Emmeline, what happened when she lost her husband, in the 17th century. And she kind of starts to realize what's happening to her. And then she finally decides that she wants to meet the man that was married to one of her ancestors. And then at the very end of the book, it kind of segues into the second book of he wants to know more about her. And their storyline is very lost love, reincarnation, finding out who she really is, how she wants to spend the rest of her life in Scotland or in the United States, or how far she wants to take the relationship, I guess you could say. I always compare it to, if you met somebody that had been reincarnated, would you want to meet your former self? That's kind of like where I got that storyline from.
I love paranormal aspects in stories like that. I just find it intriguing. And I think it's part of the reasons where it's not just your regular contemporary romance. It's not something that I imagine putting myself into, so I can just enjoy it as entertainment.
Yeah. As we tend to do, because our lives get so busy with everything we have to do and all our responsibilities. That's my thing, is during the day, I just want to sit down with a good book and just forget my day. Mm-hmm. Just lose yourself in that book. And I've read so many of those kind of books growing up, not necessarily reincarnation or anything like that, but just something you can get out of your head and just kind of lose yourself in those characters. I became fascinated with William's character because I had this image in my head of who I wanted him to be. He's a very strong character. I like my female characters to be very strong, and that's what I decided to do with Emmeline, even though a lot of 17th century women were not as aggressive as they are now, but I wanted her to be very independent and very think for yourself and very sassy. And I think the characters, I think they work. I think they mesh in the book. I hope they do.
Well, from the reviews that you have, I would say you're doing a good job.
I hope so.
So now this is the part of the show where we like to do 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but we always hold out hope.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Question 1. I read somewhere that you have 7 dogs. What kind of dogs are they?
I did. At one time I had 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're down to 5. I always go to rescues. I've always had dogs. They're my passion. But my oldest daughter, when she was younger, we took her, which was a huge mistake, to a pet store, which I never go to. And she fell in love with this Chihuahua. So I ended up getting her a Chihuahua, which I don't regret doing, but I always do rescues, always. Mm-hmm. And then my youngest daughter, when she went to go get her vaccinations, I promised her, if you don't punch the nurse, that was her reflex anytime she got her vaccinations, if you don't punch anybody, and she was only 3, we will do whatever you want to do. And she wanted to go to a pet store. So we ended up getting another dog. And of course, they had babies. And whoever we couldn't find a home for, we just kept. Mm-hmm. So at one time, we had 11 dogs. We are down to 5. They are Chihuahua Yorkies.
Oh, wow. That ought to be really cute and yappy.
Yes. Very yappy. 4 of them are Chihuahua Yorkies. One of them is a little dachshund that I actually bought in Gainesville. Took my daughter shopping, and this woman was selling them out of the back of her van, which I would never do. But we just fell in love with her, and she's a little dachshund Chihuahua.
Mhm.
So they're little yippy dogs,
So I have a lot
but
of
they're my
experience
heart.
with that. My very first dog was a Chihuahua when I was a little kid. And then my mother has had Yorkies just for years and years and years. So I'm very familiar with those little dogs. They're adorable.
Yes,
I love them. But yeah, they're noisy.
they're
But
noisy. We have a ring cam, and if a squirrel goes by the garage, they're off. They're
But I tell
off.
you what, they are the best security system you can
Hmm.
have because
Yep.
nobody's coming near your house with little dogs that make that much noise.
Yeah. And especially when they rush the door,
Yeah.
I have a small Amazon addiction. So whenever the lady knows my name,
Uh-huh.
every time she comes to the door, she's like, "Oh, you have an ankle biter." Yep. Yes, I do.
Say,
Yes,
no,
I
I have a
do.
pack of ankle biters.
I
So
have a pack of ankle biters. They are my heart. They're my little babies. I talk to them every day. Anybody would probably think I'm crazy, but yes, I do talk to my dogs.
So here, question two. See, this is why they never go quick because it leads to conversations. Question two. Do all of your friends and family read your books or just some?
Just some. My husband has never read anything I've written, and I'm very okay with that. He's an engineer, and he says because he's an engineer, he's too analytical about things.
Yeah.
So he's read snippets of my first book, when I was doing the manuscript, and just by the look on his face, I just literally grabbed it out of his hand. Nope, not doing it. Nope, nope,
Yeah.
nope, nope. I was like, you build buildings for a living. This is not what you do. So you're not gonna, you are
Yeah.
not my target audience. You are just not.
Exactly.
Um, I've had some family members that have read it. A couple of my reviews on Amazon for the first book, one of them is from my sister-in-law. She read it. I have a couple nieces that have read it. I have several friends that have read it, but not too many because I think they're afraid of hurting my feelings. And I've told
Yeah.
them I'm good. And I think it's going back to that. If they say anything bad, then it's going to hurt my feelings. If they say anything good, they're going to think that they're just sucking up. That I get it. But I've actually, two of my ex-boyfriends from many years ago have read it. One just gave it to his wife for Christmas, which I was
Oh, that's nice.
so happy with that. But my daughters have not read it because they have no interest. And that's okay. I'm good with that.
Are they romance fans?
No,
See,
no,
that does make a difference.
it does. My oldest daughter, she's married with two kids. So she's like, Mom, I have no time for romance. I get that. I completely get that. My youngest daughter is 21. So she's just kind of, if it's not online, I really am not interested. I get
Yeah.
that. I completely get that. So it's mostly just like my reader groups, my book clubs. My older sister has read it. She left me a review on my first book, and she was so sweet about it. But I don't know how comfortable I am with the second book with them reading because the second one's a little bit, teeny bit spicier. So I don't know how, sitting there talking to them face to face. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. That can make for awkward conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
Question number three. If you had to live in one of your books, which one would you choose?
Oh, the first book. Absolutely. Absolutely. I am obsessed with Scotland, everything Scotland. That's my dream vacation, which we're working towards. I just like that whole era. I think it's very romantic, just the way they lived. Anything Scottish, I'm obsessed with. I can't even tell you how many people I follow on my social media just to listen to them talk. I love the way they talk. I love their terms. I love the adventure of Scotland. And that era is very, very fascinating to me. So I would definitely the first book.
So I'll tell you, we've been planning a trip to Scotland for so long.
Oh, it's my
That's one of the
dream.
places we both want to go. It's on our bucket list, and we have not gotten there yet. So now, question four, what is your biggest distraction from writing?
My biggest distraction is quite honestly my dogs. I love these little critters. I love them to death, but I have a bedroom in my house that I converted into my office. I
Mhm.
cannot work with my door closed. I am here all day long by myself because I don't drive, so I don't leave the house.
Mhm.
I get distracted very, very easily. So if they start barking, I'm like, what are they barking at? So I got to get up. I got to go find out what are they barking at. Or if we have a ring cam. If my ring cam goes off, I get distracted. What's going on the ring cam? And it's very difficult to get back into that once you get in that zone.
Yeah.
You know, I would have to say my dogs and probably my husband when he's home. I try to work on the weekends as much as I can, but my husband is a workaholic. And when he's home on the weekends and can't work, it's always, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? I can't do that. You can't write, or come help me with this. Jana, come help me with this. It's just, my youngest child does live at home, but she's 21, so she's never home. But I thought it was going to be easier having the house to myself, and it's really not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get distracted, it's very difficult to get back in the zone. Because once you're out there checking something out, I'll do a load of laundry. I'll do this. I'll do this. It's very easy for me to get distracted.
See, now I expect you to say research would be your biggest distraction.
Oh, I love my research. Oh, I love it. It's hard. But
I know, especially when you're writing historical fiction, because that's what my series was. It was historical fiction. So I was doing a lot of research to make sure that the things that I was writing about were accurate. Like in my saloon, I have them with seltzer water that he's giving seltzer water, dandelion water that has bubbles in it to the kids when they come in so that they have something to drink. And I'm like, did they have that back then? And I'm like looking up and finding out they had it like, back in the Renaissance. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm like, how did that come about? And I'm like, learning about the development of seltzer water.
Oh my goodness. No, that does get distracting sometimes. Yes.
Yeah. It's like I can fall down a research hole so hard and fast, just like Alice dropping into Wonderland. And I have no idea where I am or how I'm getting back home.
Oh yeah. That does get distracting sometimes. I enjoy it, but I have to kind of monitor myself, which I'm getting better at. But when I'm doing my research, it's because it is so fascinating to me. And now with the new book, I'm having to research something totally different. So I'm kind of finding it a little bit. I know nothing about ranching. I know nothing about the cowboy lifestyle, nothing. So I'm having to do some research on that, but it's not quite as interesting as, researching about Scottish history, but it is very time consuming. And I always think to myself, I could be writing right now, but if you don't do the research and you're writing a book that you know nothing about. Yeah. So when I'm doing my research, I try to set aside a specific amount of time, but if I set aside an hour, I'm sitting there for 4 or 5 hours. It's easy to do. But that's not my biggest distraction, but that is a huge distraction.
So it's too easy to do that.
It really is, especially because, God bless Google. You can find anything on Google.
Okay, question 5. What is your greatest inspiration that keeps you going with these books?
My inspiration is my passion for it. I have tried, I'm just going to be completely honest, I've had dozens and dozens of jobs because I'm skilled at nothing. I was a housewife for over 30 years and a mom for 30 years. So I've had so many jobs that just pay the bills. And then I discovered my writing, which I've always loved reading anyway. And my writing started out as a hobby because it's something I love to do. And then it just snowballed. I loved it. I've done a couple jobs since then. When you get frustrated with your writing, I think everybody does. And you just think, what am I doing? I'm not talented at this at all. It's too hard. So you kind of get sidetracked. I'll just do this. And I always come back to writing. That's my passion. That's my inspiration, is writing these books and just going online and seeing if people actually enjoy them as much as I enjoy writing them. That is my passion. That's my inspiration. When I get down on anything else in my life, I always come back to my writing. And whether it takes off or not, I always tell my husband, I don't need to be rich and famous, but I just would like to be known as, when my time comes, this is what I did. This is my legacy to my kids, whether they want to do it or not. But that's my writing, I would say, is my inspiration.
And I think everybody deals with extreme frustration at some point in the process. I know for me, it's like right after the first of the year, I've been working to create a business plan so I can actually turn what I'm doing, because it's just been a hobby up to this point. Now I'm trying to turn it into an actual business.
Right.
And I was doing all the financials and going through the last year and seeing how much I was actually paying out to do the
Yeah.
podcast and the magazine and pay editors and do all the graphic design and my website and all this stuff. And I was putting together all the numbers for how much was going out and then how much was coming in. And I'm like, oh my God, like that is so off balance.
Oh,
And
yeah. We just had that. Yeah.
I was just looking at my husband. I'm going, should I just quit and just get like a regular job and just stop doing all of this? And he's like, no, we knew it takes so many years to really get a new business going.
Yes, it really does. And I have so many authors in my readers groups. They're just like, oh, they want that quick fix. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen that way. It's not going to happen. Oh, well, it did for E.L. James. No,
Yeah.
it did not. It did for the Twilight Guard. No, it did not. You don't know how many years
Yeah.
you have to put into it, and you have to stay at it just about every single day. And that's what I've learned. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now on these books, and it's just now starting to get a little take off just a little bit. But the reason is I'm starting to put the work into it. Me and my husband actually just had this discussion yesterday of, after I paid the photographer for the pictures.
Yeah.
He's like, how much are we actually willing to spend on this? That was my New Year's resolution, was this is the year for my book. This is the year for my writing career. You have to spend a little, you have to put the time in. Are you going to get that payout right out of the gate? Probably not, because it is going to take some time. But I always say, if you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're writing and you believe in what you're doing, it's worth it, whether it takes off or not. Are you going to become rich doing it? Maybe, maybe not.
See, that's one of those things I'm definitely hoping for, like a movie deal for something, because I promised my husband a Bugatti at some point in the future for all of his support.
Yes. Yes.
So I either need to start mining Bitcoin or really hit it big on a book.
Oh, yes. And that's what I tell my husband. I want you to be able to retire by the time you're 65 or at least 67. That's my goal. He supported me all these years. He's the money. He knows that. But I told him I would like to be able to let you relax for a little bit.
What is coming up next for you?
Well, I'm working on my third book now, and it has been a bit of a struggle because, like I said, I know nothing about the cowboy lifestyle. So I don't want the book to be about the cowboys. I want it to be more about their lifestyle and their business. And the third book is actually kind of a segue from the first series. It's Emily. She has four sisters. And this one is Emmeline's Fall. And it's coming along. It's been a little bit of a struggle, but I'm really enjoying writing it. I'm loving writing this story. So this one is about a rancher who owns a family business, and he meets Emily's sister. He lives in Montana, and she travels to Montana to spend some time with him. But Eveline has lost her husband. The first chapter is actually called Ghostly Visitor, and that's the way it starts. Her husband tells her that she's going to meet a man he went to college with, and she's going to spend the rest of her life with him. And she thinks it's just a dream. Then she goes to her best friend's birthday party, and that's when she meets this man that was friends with her husband. And it's practically writing itself. It's just putting these chapters together.
Where can people find you and your work?
Both of my books are on Amazon. I haven't done the audio yet. Still working on that one. Just paperback and the Kindle Unlimited, Amazon. I'm all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, Goodreads, BookBub. I am on Twitter. I'm not on there that often. I don't post on there very often, but it's social media is that's my curse, but you got to do it. You got to do it.
That is another distraction.
It's such a distraction, but you go on there to post your posts and your graphics and to market your book. And next thing you know, you're looking at dog videos and funny dogs.
Exactly.
It's hard to do, but that's where I am. I'm on my Facebook every day, answering questions. I recently acquired a new publicist, and she's working very hard to get my name out there, which is very good. So she's got me scheduled to travel to book signings and stuff. So I'm going to be all over the place.
Where would be the best place for them to find information on these upcoming events with you?
Probably my Facebook under J.R. Byers. That's me. My links are on there for both books. I have a lot of graphics on there, about to put more on there because I just had them done. But yeah, that'll take you straight to the book. I have short excerpts on both books on there. All my reviews are on there. And all those links are on Facebook. And my Instagram, I believe, too.
And all of this information is going to be in the description of today's podcast, as well as on our website, so that whenever people want to look up you and your work, they can find you very easily. And you are featured along with the rest of the Love Fest authors in the February-March issue of Book Banter magazine. So if anybody is looking to buy your books, they can find you in the magazine, and there are live links to click from there.
Awesome. Oh my gosh.
Thank you so
awesome.
much for being on this episode with me. This has been such a fun conversation.
I have. This has been fun.
So there you have it, folks. My interview with the incredible J.R. Byers. We had so much fun with this discussion. She is a great person and you will love her books. Be sure to go check them all out and her website and social media. Next week, we have our bonus romance author who was originally scheduled to be part of our Love Fest, but due to circumstances beyond our control, we had to reschedule her, but managed to get her in at the very end to give you one extra romance author. Her name is Kushi T. Saha, and she writes the Unraveled Duet romance series. It is an interracial romance with lots of passion and heart. Don't forget, we have a new issue of Book Banter magazine coming out April 1st. No fooling, I promise. I was tempted, but seriously, April 1st. This one is going to feature all of the authors who are going to be coming up on Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, the Book Talk podcast, for the next 2 months. Then this summer, we're going to have a summer reading suggestion issue that will feature books for children of all ages and adults. There'll be something for anybody to keep them busy over the summer. I have been working tirelessly behind the scenes to be bringing you some new content and some amazing authors, and I can't wait to tell you about some of them that are going to be coming up in the next couple of months. Keep watching our social media, burkhartbooks.com, and of course, all of our representation, just search at Burkhart Books. But I think that's it for today, folks. I am so tired. I need to go finish the last few pages of our April-May issue. You're going to love it. It's already 38 pages, and it looks like it might end up getting 2 more. Just to give you an idea, our year-end book buying guide that we put out last year in November with all of the authors from Season 1 and Season 2 was only about 78 pages. So this is half that size. Oh my gosh, it's been a lot of work, but it is coming out so nice. We've done a complete format change. Everything looks even better than it did before. We don't have the animation because of the way that we have to do the format changes. It's not going to work with this, but if things go right, pretty soon you're going to be able to download a copy of the magazine and keep it for yourself. So keep watching all of our social media, and we will have some great announcements coming up here very soon. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a fantastic Easter weekend if you celebrate that holiday. And if not, I hope you just have a good weekend off of everything so that you can relax and enjoy your family. But now you know what time it is, folks. It's time for you all to go forth and be very happy.